Hey guys, how's it going? I'm the Duke of Italy, your favorite lo-fi duality. You got the double lighting music YouTuber here, and welcome to a new part in one of my most recent projects, the Blackgaze Depression Guide. And today, of course, we go one step further down from neutral into the melancholic zone. Now, I hope you're ready for the most bipolar set of scores ever. The last shoegaze part, if you're following along with that series, consistently great. Just banger after banger. So, we had something completely opposite for you today. And I've talked about Blackgaze so many times, it almost goes without saying at this point. It's a very hit or miss genre for me. I find a lot of these albums great, and I find a lot of them to be pretty much garbage or very, very generic. And today, we got the best of both worlds, or the best and the worst of Blackgaze, I guess. And honestly, I got some hot takes coming for you guys, because some of this stuff that other people don't like that much, I love. Some of it that I love, other people hate. I am the Duke of Italy, so everything I say is obviously correct. So in today's melancholic episode of the Blackgaze Depression Guide, you can trust everything I say, it's fact. But, starting off with this melancholy part, we're going with Allcest with their second full-length album. Now, I've talked about Allcest a few different times. Their debut album has been a topic of frequent discussion on this channel. It's been in all the other Blackgaze videos, and it's been in the shoegaze video recently. I've probably mentioned it in other times. Very pastoral, very sort of like wall of sound, very much in that regard. For the first ever Blackgaze album, it doesn't really end the genre, but I do think that it is a great album. And today we're talking about the second Allcest album, which I'm not going to try and pronounce, but I'll probably include a little bit of text on the screen for you now if you're too lazy to look up Allcest on Spotify and click on their second full-length album. If for some reason it shows up as Le Secret, that's not it. That's their first EP. Spotify's weird about that sometimes. My bad, but I don't control Spotify. So let's talk about this album some more. So this is pretty archetypal Blackgaze with pretty archetypal Nej's singing style. If you like Nej singing on the other album he did in Allcest, you'll like it here. He's got a beautiful singing voice, and I think he does a pretty fantastic job. A really amazing guitar tone here. It's not really crunchy or lo-fi or anything, but it's just really warm and lush and pretty beautiful. It is genuinely a melancholic album, and not exactly just because it sits in this mixed feeling of emotion, but a lot of these tracks will change emotions midway through, or they'll change entirely. And occasionally there are moments of mixed emotions, and there are moments of severe and deep melancholy. And this short track list, only 6 tracks, really lets them all shine through in their own way. The first 4 tracks, I'd say, sort of can fit as their own thing. And the last 2, one of them is like really shoegazy, borderline just like rock type stuff. The last song is, I guess, a bit more proggy as far as I can remember. But, you got the opening 2-track opener that is part 1 and part 2 of the same track. And it starts off more lush and beautiful, kind of resembling of the debut. And the second track has Nej doing harsh vocals, which has not been on the debut Allcest record. So that was totally new to me. And his harsh vocals are super effective, and I think they're just fantastic here. The closer here is more acoustic, kind of resembling a lot of moments on Allcest's debut album. And the A side of this record is straightforward Blackgaze through and through. But anyway, I think that this is a great album. It's beautiful. It's emotional, it's relatively straightforward, but every track does stand out a little bit. So there's really not much reason to not check it out if you have some curiosity about Blackgaze. Now, if you want something a little bit crunchier, a little bit more interesting production-wise, we got this next album for you. This is Cold Body Radiation with The Great White Emptiness. Apologize if you hear my dog. He's scratching the floor under me. He's trying to dig in a carpet. Now, this album is lo-fi and pretty. Already a mix of great stuff for me. It's very meditative. It has this really nice bass tone that actually almost sounds fretless, but it is a bit lo-fi, so I can't entirely tell that much. A lot of killer playing on this album, actually. Some really great musicianship. The bass arpeggios on the track Loss are just fantastic. And this really leans into post-rock territory. Not as much post-metal where it just drives and drives and drives, but it's got a lot of meditative moments, a lot of slow builds. It really reminds me of the Clouds Collide's first album, and I got the shirt on today. You can't see too well. It's so hard to show off in this lighting, but I am wearing my Clouds Collide shirt. The Clouds Collide's records so far are all pretty melancholic. First one I'd say is a bit more depressive, but I think that would have fit here too. And the vocals are awesome. Very, very harsh. When you say harsh vocals, these are particularly aggressive and wretched. Very screechy sounding. They really reach that higher register. And it's moody. It's a bit sad. But overall, it's very nice. And this is probably one of the better ones on this whole chart so far. But I would give this one a great for sure. And next we get Lantloss's album, Neon. I've discussed this one on the Shoegaze chart recently, but sort of a recap here today. It's a lot like Deaf Heaven's Sunbather in terms of this is archetypal Blackgaze. If you were to pull out of a hat a Blackgaze sound, there's a good chance that it's going to sound like this, but not as good. There's even a great argument to say that this is better than Sunbather. It's better than most other Blackgaze albums. It's very essential. It's very good. It's darker than Sunbather, a bit more concise. The riffs are a bit more memorable, a bit tighter as a whole. It doesn't try to be as grand, but at the same time, it's roughly as effective. And, Marcus is great. Support Marcus, support Lantloss. One of the best bands to ever do it, and one of the least recognized to ever do it as well. But this one's great as well. If you're keeping track, we're at 3 for 3 so far. And next we have the band So Hideous with the album Lorestein. This is sort of one piece divided up into a bunch of different tracks. Very big orchestral sort of setup here. It's got a huge, I guess you could say it's a chamber music bend. It's an interesting idea, but it drifts totally apart from the Blackgaze feeling. It feels like something else entirely. There's a dueling guitar setup. One has a painfully generic sort of rhythmic tone, and one goes full tremolo for the lead guitar, and the riffs it plays are not very good, and the tone itself is also rather abrasive, which why would you do chamber music if you're not trying to sound good? I don't think I could imagine chamber music sounding harsh. The song The Keepsake that goes into the track Falling Cedars, or the movements rather, has a decent transitionary point, and the thing overall is clearly cohesive. It does feel like one big ol' set of movements, but really, this thing is so boring, and the tones are not interesting at all. Overall, I think this thing is poor, actually. I would not recommend listening to this at all. Genuinely surprised me how much it was unenjoyable. And no, not unenjoyable because it gives me old feelings. What's really pervasive in that way, as someone who listens to metal regularly, or harsh noise, or dark ambient, or post-rock that's supposed to be really depressing, you name it, I don't like this because it's bad, not because it's melancholic. And next is, I believe, Troutonist with their self-titled record. This is a short and sweet album. 36 minutes in length. And if you see the cover, and I saw the cover, and I was like, I don't know about this. Don't know if I'm going to enjoy it. And So Hideous, that band, actually on Rate Your Music, they're considered great. I don't get it at all. But this Troutonist band is not considered very great. But I prefer this album a lot more. It's good hazy sort of Blackgaze, a really interesting production angle taken there with really screamo style vocals. It's slow moving and impressionist, really hazy walls of fuzzy guitar. And has got a really simple approach with DSBM style songwriting that only works in its favor. This album is also a bit like Clouds Collide's debut. I love Blackgaze when it takes an interesting production angle. You don't have to go high fidelity. The delayed guitar build on the song Fragile is genuinely sick. I think it's really, really impressive. I will have to say, though, that this album is pretty slow moving, so you do kind of have to be in the mood for it. But if you are, you're going to really, really enjoy it. This is a great album. And the last album we're talking about today is Harakiri for the Sky's self-titled album. Now, this album, for me, I got some gripes with. I got a love-hate relationship with Harakiri for this guy. A lot of hype came out for their album last year, Mayor, I don't know, M-A, some kind of accented E-R-E. And I remember listening to it, and I was like, this feels brighter slightly than all the very, very generic Blackgaze I was listening to at the time, because I was just scooping clean black metal promotion on YouTube. And I mention this sometimes. YouTube channels, the most popular ones on YouTube that recommend albums or whatever, give those a skip more often than not because they're probably not that good. You want to find the more interesting channels, like Dungeon Synth Archive is not as good, but the other Dungeon Synth channels upload some really good lo-fi stuff, or at least they try to. A lot of generic stuff coming from black metal promotion, and I listened to Mare, and I believe it was even on that channel. And I remember being like, this really doesn't separate that much for me. I think it doesn't add nearly as much as it's trying to. So I looked forward to Harakiri for this guy's debut. I looked forward, and I was like, you know what? Let's give this album a shot. Maybe y'all like it. I don't love it. I will say the vocals kind of emulate Rest from Leviathan. He's a great vocalist, so, it's good to take influence from that. Honestly, the opener is lacking in riffs, and the production is not interesting at all. So we're not off to a great start. And I will say, it does feel a little soy, it feels a little Reddit. But it does pick up steam on the following tracks. It gets a little bit more traction. It has a little bit more energy to it. The riffs are a bit more different. I think there's 2 guitars set up here. It sounds a bit more interesting. But I will say, for being so atmospheric bending, it's not very immersive. I will say that the lead guitar on Drowning in My Nihilism is very good, and it's one of the best elements of that song, making that probably the best song on this album here. But overall, this isn't the worst thing I've ever heard. It's certainly not the worst Blackgaze record I've ever heard. And I'd put it higher amongst the okay albums. This gets an okay from me, if that wasn't a clear and obvious hint to not only you guys, but for future Duke, who's going to be editing this video. That's all we have for the Melancholic section of this chart. Up next is the depressive, and then the one that I don't think I'll be able to put on a YouTube title because it references necking yourself. But that'll be super fun. I listened to one of those albums already, so when we get there, it's going to be just amazing. But that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. What do you think of these albums? Do you like Trotanist? Do you like Cold Body Radiation? Do you like So Hideous? If so, why? Actually, why? Go ahead, comment down below. Tell me why you like them. Tell me why you think they're not boring. Go ahead, write an essay. Have fun. Have a ball. But that is about it. So if you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, comment down below, as well as your thoughts on these records, like I just said earlier. Leave a like, and I hope you guys can find it in your heart to subscribe. We're starting to grow a little bit, and things are being fun. I know I used to mention my Discord page in the description down below and how we were having a good time. That was mostly a lie, except now it's not a lie. We actually got some people participating and stuff, and it's a good time. So if you want to join, totally go down there right now and join us, because we're having a good one. And of course, I hope you guys are doing well out there. Have a good one. Bye.